Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I'm Narayani Raghavan, and very glad to connect with all of you fellow L&D professionals. I'm hoping that you must be L&D professionals or HR professionals from different organizations, because this particular webinar is exclusively for L&D on succession planning, right? On how you can build ready now leaders and on what L&D can do to build ready now leaders, right? I'm Narayani Raghavan, and I'm a learning architect. I'm a coach. And what I do is I help organizations and professionals in organizations to move from not ready to ready now for leadership positions. And I've been part of succession planning discussions for many years. I've seen it from within the room, from an action level, because I spent 15 years in corporate L&D. I was with organizations like AstraZeneca, HCL, Royal Bank of Scotland, Virtusa. I was in the L&D team of these organizations. I was leading, in my last role, as leading leadership development and behavioral skill development for India at AstraZeneca. So I've seen this from the L&D lens, and I have created a model that would be handy for all L&D professionals about what is today's need um, for succession planning and what we can do as L&D professionals, right? So thank you very much for choosing to attend this today amongst your busy schedule. When we think about succession planning, most organizations focus heavily on identifying talent. And I'm sure that you would all be doing that, right? However, identifying talent and preparing talent are two very different things, right? Today's conversation is about how L&D can move beyond just delivering learning interventions and become an active contributor to leadership readiness. So we'll explore how L&D can help create more ready now leaders in your organization through a very practical framework that I've developed, which you can take back and you can apply within your organization. Right? So if you're all ready to know more, if you're curious to know more, just give me a quick thumbs up. This webinar is consciously made as a mute and video off one because we're having many participants. Yes, so thank you. So you can keep giving reactions. And if you have any questions, you can put that on chat. I have Vinod from the Skill Upright team with whom I have partnered. And thanks, Skill Upright and Vinod, for having me here as a guest speaker on this topic. He would also have a watch on the chat. While I'm presenting, I may not be able to see your chat um, right at that moment. I will come to chat questions at intervals, right? And if you have questions, you can put them on chat. Yeah. Right. So thanks for the thumbs up. We'll move forward, and this is what you have all registered for. Now let's begin with a simple thought, right? A thought experiment. Imagine that your CEO walks into the next leadership review meeting. Your CEO or your MD in this next meeting, the HR meeting or the succession planning meeting or your L&D dashboard review meeting with your MD or the CEO, he or she walks in and says, how many people are genuinely ready to step into bigger leadership roles if needed in our organization? Would your organization have enough people? Now, most organizations know who their top performers are. Far fewer know how many leaders are actually ready. They know their top performers, but it's two different things about whether leaders are ready and whether we have top performers. So that gap between performance and readiness is where today's webinar discussion begins. So take a moment to reflect in your organization. How many successors are truly ready now? Now, in case you are a developing L&D professional, in case you're new to L&D, then let me introduce what I'm talking about, right? So succession planning is typically this meeting and this process by which L&D, most often L&D or talent development, or if you don't have a separate L&D function, then the HR team sits with the business leaders, the MD or the CEO and the business heads. And it's a meeting, it's a discussion, and it's a process for the year by which we identify who are next in line, who is going to succeed for these critical leadership positions, for the business head positions, right? So you have, let's say, four main verticals and you have four leaders currently. Who is next in line for those positions? Which means that the leaders have a responsibility to create the next in line. As HRs and as L&D, we are anchoring that. In any organization, we play an important role to anchor that. And so succession, this is at a very large scale level, but at every level, every leader is always asked this question from the HR team about who are you creating for to be in your role, to come to your role, so that when you grow, who's going to take up your position, who is ready. And in succession planning, the three terms that we generally use is ready now, which refers to the people who are right now ready. Like immediately, this is the person who can take this role after I step out or after I move from this role to the next position or I move some laterally also. So internal movements happen, their promotions happen. It's very important that somebody is always ready now to take on and step on that role. So that's one. The other is ready in 1 to 2 years. So we call that as ready later. They are not yet fully ready now to take this leadership position. We call them ready later or ready in 1 to 2 years. Um, and then yeah, then you have ready later. We also have not ready, right? Somebody is also in the, so they are, the maybe the ones who are reporting into this leader, but they are not ready for leadership role at all. They are not even in the ready later category. So ready now, ready in about 1 to 2 years, will be ready later, not in the next 2 years, and then not at all ready, nowhere close, right? So in your organization, if we were to ask this question to you, how many successors are truly ready now? How many are ready in 1 to 2 years? And how many are in the ready later category? And now here's the more important question. What is L&D doing for the ready later group? So most organizations identify them. You will know. Um, And if you haven't, if you don't do that, then it's very important to start doing that. This is a very important, um, it's a very important piece that sits within L&D, and we play a very important role in the people strategy of the organization through succession planning. And so most organizations identify who's ready now, not ready, ready later. But very few organizations systematically develop them. What are we doing for the ready later people? What are we doing for the ready in 1 or 2 years? It's not just the responsibility of the business in making them ready now. So when L&D starts playing an important role in that, that is when L&D becomes a strategic partner. That is when L&D plays a very active and important role in the people strategy. And you become a very important integral element in the HR strategy of the organization and overall in the goals and strategic vision of your organization. You work hand in hand with your business leaders in that because you're going to be helping the business to continue sustainably by helping them develop ready now leaders, right? So it is for this reason and to answer this question that we're running this webinar today. That's what I'm going to focus on in this session. So yes, historically, L&D was viewed as a training function, right? So traditionally, we are training providers, business requests training, L&D organizes it and delivers it. Today, that expectation has changed significantly. Organizations expect L&D to influence leadership capability, influence the future workforce readiness, influence the culture of the organization, influence succession pipelines. So I firmly believe L&D sits at the heart of people strategy, not because we deliver programs. We cannot be at the heart of people strategy if we just deliver programs. So we can do that only if we influence how talent grows. And that is something that L&D surely can do. So um, we'll look at, we'll try and understand a little more about why high performers fail leadership transition. You could say that this wouldn't this just happen on its own? There are always high performers. The high performers become ready now, and they're going to take on the next role. But very often they fail in leadership transition, right? They could be great high performers, but they may not be ready now leaders. That's the problem. What I have seen from my experience is that they are great technically. The high performers are great technically, but they do not become great leaders. And that is the space where L&D has a role to play. And that's how we influence talent to grow. And that's how um, we play a role in the people strategy, right? So if you think that it would organically happen, there will be high performers, and the high performers are the ones who are ready for the next leadership role. You might still be in the administrator category, and you will just be seen as training providers, but you will not fit into this modern category of being a very strategic player for the people strategy of the business. So here's the biggest thing, right? So before we actually see that, so let me ask you, have you ever seen an outstanding individual contributor who struggles after becoming a manager as HRs? You would have definitely seen this. There are so many which is why we are then told that, first time manager, give them some training, or this person is now managing their own peers. There's a lot of team collaboration issues. The team's not coming together because earlier this person was a peer, now he's the leader, he or she's become the manager. So this is a very constant thing. Most of us have seen this. So organizations often promote people because they are excellent performers. But the assumption is great performers equals great leaders. That's an assumption, right? Unfortunately, that's why it fails. So leadership requires an entirely different set of capabilities, which is what I have on this slide. So as individual contributors, they will be great problem solvers. They deliver their work to the team. They demonstrate expertise. They focus on execution. They also tend to focus on uh, creating visibility for themselves. Some people most often are there they reach that best performer category because they are great at knowing what their skills are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, how to leverage on what they're good at, how to handle their weaknesses, how to project the good work that they do. Unfortunately, when they become a leader, it's those same qualities that probably stop them from becoming that great leader, right? So what got them here will not get them there. That's the biggest gap. So this is where I'd like to share something from my own experience. So during my time in L&D, um, in my last role, I led an executive coaching initiative for the leaders or the employees. I mean, they are of course leaders who are potentially in the discussion, in the succession planning of those critical business head positions and leadership positions. However, they are not in the ready now category. So for those people who are in the ready later or not ready or ready in 1 or 2, 3 years category, I led an executive coaching program where we organized a one-on-one coaching for these people, and we help them to truly shift from where they are to becoming ready now. And from my experience in succession planning, what is it that truly make somebody as ready now for leadership roles, right? If I were to ask you about what are those skills, the skills are almost never technical skills. it is, if it is there, then they are nowhere even in consideration, right? They're absolutely not even in the zone or even in the names that list under the succession planning. So it's never technical skills, right? So it's always been some of these behavioral skills. It has always been things like, I have heard discussions where they say that this person is almost ready, ready later, but not ready yet. And when we ask about why not ready, oh, the person lacks leadership communication, or is the person is not able to take decisions on their own, or the person it does not have executive presence, there's no gravitas, um, needs strategic thinking, or has confidence issues, right? Or challenges, there are challenges in how they can develop other people, so challenges in their ability to lead other people, difficulty in influencing stakeholders, difficulty in addressing stakeholders with executive presence. So the problem wasn't capability at all, the problem was leadership readiness. So, which of these themes are most common in your organization? And I want you to think about it. These 6 points that I have put here under leadership readiness are what I have seen very often. Six key themes that most often are the reasons why, in today's world, at least definitely in this 2020s season, these six are definitely one of the reasons why somebody is not in the ready now category. The leadership readiness in these area is the one that is hampering it for them. Right. Um, so now that we've seen about this, the this distinction is critical. So performance readiness asks about, can they perform today's role? And so by performance, they are great. They are ready. They can handle this role. But leadership readiness is about, can they succeed in tomorrow's role? And that's where is the gap. And that's where L&D also has a role to play. So the problem is that one looks at past performance, the other assesses future potential, and most succession conversations focus heavily on performance. Very few focus deeply on readiness. Very few L&D teams, very few organizations focus on that leadership readiness, right? Which is, we do assess it, and we do, we do create ways of how we are going to continue to do this succession planning methods, processes where we work with the business heads to identify talent. But then what about those talent who can become potential leaders, and what are we doing for those to create that ready now talent? What is L&D doing to create that L&D talent, that, I mean, ready now talent? That is where there is a lot of, that's a great opportunity area. This is where I believe it's a great opportunity area. So talent reviews identify talent, succession discussions categorize talent, but who develops readiness, that responsibility increasingly sits with L&D. So this is where I'd like to introduce a framework, and that's what we'll focus on in the next few minutes. So from my experience and from my research of what's happening in the industry, the best practices, based on that, I have created the READY framework. Simple to remember because we want to create ready now people. That's my niche area. I work on creating people as ready now, from not ready or ready later. And so it's a very easy acronym, READY. And in this framework, I am going to tell you some of the methods that you can incorporate, keeping it very practical. Now, it could be that you are doing some of these or many of these, right? So you can also look at it as sort of a self-assessment or an L&D assessment for yourself on what practices you're already doing. So if you're doing it, and if you're doing all of them, then that's great. You can go back thinking that we're already there. Or if you, I'm sure you will find few from here that you can incorporate. And so then that's something that you can take back from this session. So if you're curious to know more about what this is, let's head straight into R first. right? Now, many succession discussions are very subjective. It's about the person, right? So it's like, oh, she's not ready, or he needs more exposure. But what exposure, right? Exposure to what? Or ready for what? So this is where readiness must be defined. Now, you might be having succession planning discussions, but have you defined exactly what are we evaluating readiness on, and have them described? So L&D can help bring that structure and clarity for the business leaders, for the business, for HR as a whole, on readiness behaviors and indicators. So you could be working with the HR business partners. This could help them as well. So give them the readiness indicators. Let L&D anchor that. So one of the biggest contributions would be simplifying and creating and simplifying those readiness indicators, and bring it down, obviously bring it down from your HR strategy or your people strategy. Bring it from the the values and capabilities that are defined for leadership roles. Some organizations have a leadership framework, capability framework. If you don't have a capability framework, pick a people capability framework. Go from the kind of capabilities defined when you typically define the role, the job description of roles. So create an holistic framework that will be easy to apply, and something that is a language that business leaders can speak, HRs can speak, right? So this is one important thing. And on that, instead of naming broad competencies like strategic thinking, executive presence, or influence, instead of that, right, let's define observable behaviors. So, what would someone actually do if they possess these capabilities? That's how you define. The answer to that is the definition. So, maybe once, initially you identify those readiness pillars or the readiness capabilities, and then define each of those capabilities. And once defined, they become measurable and developable, right? So you one of the very important principles is you cannot develop what you cannot describe. So the moment you describe it or define it, then you can create measures for it, and you can develop those skills as well. So here's the example on the screen. So instead of saying need strategic thinking, which is how mostly the discussions I see are happening, this person needs more strategic thinking, which is why this person is not ready now. But define what is strategic thinking. Like anticipates business implications before making decisions. Right? It's one point, and you could have like three things, 3 points, three competencies that define it. Like executive presence, you can say influences stakeholders confidently across levels, and then influences the team with gravitas, whatever. So you can define it, and create clarity on how exactly are we creating standards of what we mean by each of these. So that's the R. So reflect, but don't just reflect on who is ready now, not ready, etc. The reflect here that we truly mean is reflect on defining readiness before you develop it. Define what is readiness, define categories, define competencies for assessing readiness. So that's the reflect. The next is equip. So equip your people towards becoming ready now. Now, here's a space where definitely every L&D team is doing something, obviously, right? Um, but the only problem is many organizations still do isolated programs. Like there is say, a manager essentials program. There is a first time managers program. There's a senior managers program. There's a senior leadership program. There probably are programs for business heads globally done. You get to mentor or work along with other global leaders. They all become standalone programs. Now, when you equip them in a holistic way, right? So for example, let's take the same first time managers. Now we need to build journeys instead of just creating isolated programs. So you probably have it all. You just have to connect them together into journeys. That goes a long way in equipping them towards becoming ready now. So, like first time managers, they need far more than just a management workshop, right? Like they do need to learn about performance management, they need to learn about HR processes. They will benefit from coaching skills, which is absolutely new for them. They might have mentored other people, and mentoring and coaching are two different things. They must have, as lead performers in the team, as star performers in the team, they must have mentored others, saying this is what you should do, don't do this. But they need to start adopting coaching. They don't want to come across as a manager who's always giving all the answers. Then their best people will be unhappy. So coaching skills or feedback skills, which is another new space, right? So how do you create a journey of where you have your regular, communication skills, feedback skills, and all of those, and then you also add it with performance management methods of your organization? Like simply, how do you how is a goal statement evaluated from the manager's side on the portal? Or what are HR processes for, say, a new employee onboarding, or the exit of an employee? These are things that they immediately would have to do, right? So combining processes and behavioral skills and leadership skills, people management skills into journeys, and create these journeys over time. And not everything needs everything, right? So you can pick what do first time managers need, what do the mid managers need, what do the senior leadership team need, what does somebody need when they become a manager of managers for the first time, right? Does a typical functional head need, or a business head need? So creating journeys like that becomes crucial. And and then you link it to how you are helping create readiness for those leadership roles. Excuse me for that. So this is where, from just learning providers, you become learning architects, right? So the entire architecture of learning is so well structured and strong that if somebody is in the floor of, ready in 1 to 2 years, they will have the right stairway or the elevator to climb up towards becoming ready now. Now, the next biggest question I have for you. So, this is about equip, right? So, you are creating or equipping your people with the right journeys, which is a combination of not just the soft skills, or not just process skills, but you create a package. So, L&D comes up with a package where the person is entirely ready with all of this knowledge. And I'm not spending much time on the kind of soft skill training or leadership training, because that is something that every L&D team has. And I'm assuming here, of course, that that is something that you would have or you would know, because that's beyond the point of the succession planning webinar that we're on. Now, the next biggest thing is which is accelerate. And here's where it's a new best practice that leading organizations, or organizations which are far ahead in how their L&D functions, or how the learning culture in their organization is, are doing, right? This is what those organizations are doing, and that's something to learn from. So my question to you all is, what are you offering for the employees and leaders who are in the not ready category for leadership roles, right? Or for the ready later category? What are you offering? This becomes a very, very important question to ask, right? So talent review happens, and we typically have people in categories. So my question is here is that what happens next? What support do these leaders receive? Now, this is where coaching becomes a strategic accelerator. Now you accelerate people's readiness, accelerate the way they get ready. And for that, now this typically, for the example that I was telling you about, the business head roles and the succession planning for those roles, and then there are people in There's not ready or ready later or ready in 1 2 years category. For them, use coaching as the readiness catalyst. Coaching is the one-on-one coaching that you give for these employees, and you identify coaches for this, right? So L&D is growing rapidly in the space of coaching. So in some organizations, in most of the organizations, there is the concept of manager as coach, which is where the manager oneself is adopting coaching methods instead of just mentoring, because we do understand that situational leadership is key, right? And situational leadership is that you don't have the same leadership style all the time with all the employees. You adapt your leadership style as per the situation. And one of the most important leadership style to adopt for especially people who know their work, who've been in the role for some time, they're not new, but they lack motivation. They are, handling something very difficult. They are potentially people who know answers, who would be able to find answers. These people don't need to be told what to do. They need to be coached. And coaching is where the manager or the leader or the coach asks them questions, makes them think, presents whatever is there in front of them, which they just heard from them, and sort of puts it in front of them as puzzle pieces and gets them to think in angles that they are not able to think of by themselves, right? So, which is why a lot of organizations are focusing on manager as a coach, which is key because managers need to adopt a coaching mindset to retain talent, to empower the talent in their team, and in fact to grow talent, so that's how they are also creating leaders. Now on the other side, there are some areas where it's not just the manager who can coach them on. Like typically, when we were speaking about executive presence or leadership communication, stakeholder management, strategic thinking, these are areas where a third coach, apart from the manager, a coach can actually coach that leader or that employee to make them ready now, right? So there's a ready later category. Now, if there's no such coaching intervention, they will mostly be here. And it not all leaders would know to create that sort of ready now leader, which is why we time and again have these conversations with some of the leaders saying that for a very long time there's nobody in ready now in your team, right? Either they are not able to bring people there, or they are hesitant out of fear of being taken over, or different reasons for which succession planning is not effectively happening. So here's where L&D can play a very good role in rapidly moving people towards ready now, which is by getting those people in ready later coached by an external coach, or you could become one such coach. It's great to have an L&D coach in an organization. There are very few organizations which have started doing that. They have, within L&D, they have a coaching team, or they have a coach in their team who is will be the one who will be directly coaching one to one with these leaders. These become highly confidential discussions, and there could be things that this employee or this potential leader might not be able to share with their managers or leaders. They could be handling tricky things which are affecting their motivation levels. There could be beliefs and identity issues that are stopping them from doing or exhibiting this quality. Like, for example, executive presence, with my experience coaching a lot of leaders on executive presence, um, more than just the skill of executive presence, which people go for trainings and they learn what it is. There are so many videos that teach people on how to speak with executive presence. But when I work one to one as a coach with them, I'm able to see that it is their internal self limiting beliefs or their identity crisis that stops them from exhibiting it. Like somewhere deep down, they might say, "Oh, I think that my work should speak for me. I don't believe in putting myself out there." Or I have grown in a way where I put my message very subtly. I'm not somebody who puts forth my thoughts strongly. I believe that it is wrong to do that. I believe that I'm not making space for other people. So there are these self-limiting beliefs deep down that sometimes even stop people from exhibiting these qualities. And for a very long time, they don't reach ready now at all. And we're not able to solve that either. So these are the benefits of coaching, which can be a great catalyst in moving people to ready now and as a great readiness catalyst, right? So accelerate readiness by introducing coaching in your organization. So you could invite coaches. You can partner with coaches in the market, and you can get them to coach these potential leaders. And that is a one of the best practices in the industry. Those initiatives are greatly acknowledged and appreciated by business as well, because it's a very heavy piece that L&D is taking up. And the business leader who has been trying to do this uh, amongst the one's busy schedule has not been successful in bringing somebody to that ready now category, or the business leader is looked down because for a very long time he or she had a person in that not ready category, but hasn't done anything for needle movement towards a ready later or a ready now. And so they also feel that I'm not effectively able to build somebody. So when L&D takes up this big piece, it's seen as a great value add that L&D is bringing, right? So this also extends to sorry, I think I had a slight slip in the network. I hope that you're able to see my screen now. Right. So that's about accelerate, right? So you think about how you can bring in coaching, which will be a great game changer um, in your L&D initiatives for readiness. So REA, and now we are on D. So D is where demonstrate, where people are given the opportunity to demonstrate, right? That's what we mean here mainly. You create opportunities to practice leadership. So leadership cannot be developed entirely in a classroom, right? At some point, leaders need opportunities to also demonstrate readiness or learn from demonstration that other leaders do. So here's where L&D can partner with the business. Development must move beyond just theory, which is as L&D functions beyond just trainings. It should move into practice, right? So training is of course one element, which is where you're creating those learning journeys effectively. Coaching is another element where one-to-one, the specific leaders, specific challenges and areas of opportunities are worked on by an individual. And then the third is where you are creating opportunities to demonstrate leadership. So this is one of the most underutilized interventions, but the impact that it can have is huge. So you could have leadership forums. You could, have some of these quarterly leadership forums, or annual leadership forums is way too slow, but quarterly works great. Manager forums, panel discussions, business leader conversations. So I used to run something every month for leaders. It depends on the organization size and the interest that the business shows as well. Of course, we play a great role in creating that interest. So you could even have monthly forums, and you could do different initiatives like these, which in which the leaders are having an opportunity to discuss best practices, or also see visibly about how other leaders are doing it. They'll be able to learn from each other. They'll be able to talk about some of the common leadership challenges or the real leadership challenges that the organization is facing at that moment. For example, if your organization's pulse survey show poor feedback culture, then create a forum around feedback, right? And let that be an overarching theme for a couple of months, or for a few quarters. If collaboration is weak, then create forums around stakeholder management or team collaborations, and make it very contextual, right? So that helps the organization to talk about real world challenges, and that's a great way of how you will be enabling readiness, right? Um, Stretch assignments is another major area that definitely, we have a great role to play. L&D has a great role to play. Um, it is very important that stretch assignments sit within L&D for this reason, right? In some organizations, it's not within L&D, but it ideally should be for this reason, because look at how stretch assignments connect to leadership readiness. So this is the best leadership development which happens, which is, we all know about the 70-20-10 principle of how we learn, right? So the 10% is the classroom learning or the training. 20% is the leadership forums that I was talking about, where you learn from peers. Peer learning happens, but the 70% learning happens through these stretch assignments, which is where there are opportunities for employees uh, to hold a stretch project role for some time, for 6 months, 3 months, and keep it flexible. It's good to have projects of varying time zones. It's, I mean, not time zones. I mean, it's great if it can even be across time zones. It's great if the timelines are not the ones that are stopping them. It could be based on the heaviness of the project and not based on the duration. So cross-functional projects, a lot of strategic initiatives where people can explore another function or another role for some time, not necessarily secondments where they move from a role to another and then come back, but stretch projects, right? So how can leaders practice before promotion? It's through these stretch assignments. So strategic projects, cross-functional assignments, it's a great opportunity for them to present to senior leaders, or acting leadership opportunities that can also sit inside this. So these experience build that confidence and credibility, or that true leadership communication and executive presence, which can only be done through experience than just classroom training. And the last one of the ready model is why, which is yield. This is my favorite part of this framework, because the goal is not merely in creating ready now leaders. The goal is creating leaders who continuously create more leaders. So this is how leadership capability can scale, and this is how L&D plays a massive role, right? So think about the difference between a traditional manager and a coaching leader, right? A traditional manager provides the answers, but a coaching leader will develop thinking. So the coaching leader will get his people to start thinking like leaders. He will develop and ask them the powerful questions by which their capability improves, their performance improves, and they also start thinking like leaders. Those abilities that we talk about, which are literally stopping them from getting into that leadership role, are built when they are coached by their leader and not just told what to do, which is why um, leaders as coaches become extremely crucial, which is why L&D should build leaders as coach, right? So when managers learn to coach, they become multipliers of that capability itself. So this is another major best practice that many organizations are following, where the leaders are trained on how to coach. So one is you bring the coaches from outside to directly coach potential leaders. And the other is you train your leadership team on how to coach, right? And in case you're new to this concept, please do explore, browse a little more about what difference does it make between coaching and mentoring as a leader. In fact, what is coaching that a leader can pick up, right? Because um, it's a game changer in building leadership capabilities. So a coach has to embody some behaviors. As a coach, the leader has to embody behaviors like being present in the room in that particular discussion, and not getting affected by how the last meeting or the last discussion went, strongly believing that this person that they are right now coaching has the absolute potential to solve this problem, right? Instead of thinking that, oh, I have to intervene. I know I have seen that this person can't handle it. I've seen what happened in the last project. I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to delegate and let go. Instead, the coach has to absolutely believe that they have the potential and I can tap that potential. My job is to tap that potential, or help them to be able to see where they have to work on to be able to handle it by themselves, right? It really calls for the leader to delegate more, effectively, and not to always be the bottleneck. So remember the example that I spoke about earlier, where a great performer becomes a leader. They can't coach because they still would operate, one of the disadvantages is that they might still operate in the perspective of, what will happen to my image if my team member makes a mistake, because as high performers, they have been very careful with their visibility, their image, and their reputation, that if somebody makes a mistake, it's gone. And so I don't delegate, I don't leave things from my control. I become the bottleneck for every decision making. Everything stops at me. So I will do some rework on it, change the whole thing, and only then it can step out. These behaviors will completely be changed when the leader learns to be a coach. And that's when, it will pass on to the team, and every person also is very soon learning how to be a leader. So under this leader who is going to be coaching, right? So yeah, let me just so under this leader who's going to be adopting a coaching methodology for their people, these people are also seeing and learning the coaching methodology, and that's how it spreads, right? And so some of these lack of skills that we talk about, some of these competencies which they should be having, which they don't have for becoming ready now, are learned naturally in this process. So yield more of ready now, leaders, by making leaders as coaches, right? So that is the last part of the ready model, right? The model that we were speaking about, which is READY. And so, yeah, so scaling the yield is is what we're talking about. And few more methods of how you can do that, right? Is about peer mentoring networks. So definitely have, leadership development should not just rely on L&D. So that's how you are scaling that yield. You're not the one who is always doing it. So for that, what you can do is, there's already expertise, incredible expertise that is internally available in your team, in your organization. Just scale it, right? How do we unlock it? Peer mentoring and internal coaching networks that create scalable development opportunities, and because your people learn from people. So have a method by which leaders can volunteer themselves as mentors. There should be platforms, some of your internal platforms, where they can register themselves as mentors, and somebody who's looking for a mentor can go browse and find a mentor. Similarly, registering themselves as coaches, right? When they register themselves as a coach, anybody can go get coached by them again. And have methods by which, there are a lot of opportunities for peer development, peer knowledge share, and overall this peer mentoring and internal coaching networks. So leadership forums is one, but these are where people uh, go one to one, and they learn and learn from each other, or mentor and coach each other. That's another great way to scale the yield. So summing it all up, this is the capability architect's strategy, and these are the 5 pillars that I was just speaking about, which are the READY, which I've just defined here as a blueprint for you. So number one, define readiness behaviors. What are the indicators, behaviors, and the definitions? Instead of just having subjective feedback during succession planning discussions that this person lacks this person needs this, make it measures Once you are able to define it, you can measure it and you can develop it. Next is build continuous leadership journeys and not isolated events. Create overall leadership journeys, which will easily make us, help, which will easily help them also towards becoming ready now, and also is a great measure for us to see who's in the ready now pipeline. Use coaching strategically to accelerate the pipeline. What are you doing for your not ready or ready later people? Coach them, hire and coach them. And next is create safe leadership exposure opportunities. So this is where you create the forums and a lot of other internal exposure opportunities. So I'm just moving on in the interest of time to what we just saw, a summary of the whole thing. Reflect, equip, accelerate with coaching, demonstrate with the leadership experience, platforms for mentoring and coaching, etc. Yield by creating more leaders, right? Make leaders as coaches. So, with that, we've come to the end of this particular session. Um, I don't see any questions. I see some comments. Thank you very much for the comments. So there are no rule books or parameters to sort from the high potentials to this bucket, right? So um, there's no specific rule book because it varies from organization to organization, but we could always, work it out. I mean, if you need help, you can always reach out. Um, I'm just reading the comments. Okay, great. So to assess people if they are ready, ready now, ready later, what is the framework? Someone has asked that. Usually there's a 9 box method that is used. You can browse for that. 9 boxing framework is a very handy framework which you can use to identify your succession plan. Great. Are there any other questions? So thank you very much. Yeah, the 9 box grid, someone has mentioned that. So great. Thank you very much to all of you. Thanks for your participation. I'm Narayani Raghavan once again, and happy to have been able to run this session for all of you. Looking forward to great succession planning using the Ready model. Do let us know how it goes, and if you have any questions, you could reach out to Skill Upright, or you could reach out to me if you would like to know more. I'm a coach as well as a facilitator. So if you would like to personally reach out for any more questions or clarify ideas and thoughts, you could reach out to me. You could also reach out to Skill Upright, with whom I have been running many such webinars. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity, Vinod and team. I think we are good to close. Vinod, maybe just we'll just wait in case people have any other questions. Let's not shut it down. Great. I also request that, since this is not a two-way program, if you have some great feedback or your thoughts about the Ready model, please do share your feedback and comments on the Skill Upright page where, this webinar has been posted, so that, that'll be very helpful for us to know about what we could do, whether you found it useful, whether it's working, and what we can continue to share for other people, right? For more people. This is a recorded session, so we don't have a PPT that we can share because these are registrations from different people. But definitely, I think summary of this will be shared. I think there will be some follow up that Vinod and team will share with you. And the recording, of course, is available on Skill Upright's page and their YouTube page. Okay, great. We're done, and I don't think there are any other questions.